In this video, I'm going to show you how to solve the ALEKS problem called writing a multi-step equation for a real-world situation. There are two different versions of this problem. One version of the problem looks like this. It's got a story associated with it, and it wants you to come up with an equation to describe something in particular, like mine is asking me to come up with an equation for total profit. There's a lot of variety with the story version of this problem. I've seen ones that involve college credits. I've seen ones that involve cans and jars or something like that. This one involves electronics, MP3 players, and DVD players. So even though there's a lot of variety here, this is one particular format of the problem where you have a story and you're asked to come up with an equation. The other version of the problem is something like n is the middle number of a set of integers or a set of even numbers. Write an expression for these integers, something along those lines. So it's not a story. It's telling you you've got a set of numbers, n is the one in the middle. Come up with an equation to describe all of these numbers. I am going to show you how to solve this version of the problem, and I'm also going to show you or talk to you about how to solve the other version of the problem as well. So no matter which one you're looking at, you should be able to solve this problem successfully. If you have this version of the problem where there's an actual story involving objects like MP3 players, first thing I want you to know is that you're going to need to write two separate mathematical equations in order to solve this problem. One of the equations is the equation that ALEKS is asking for, the total profit in dollars, which is my equation, but you're going to need to write an extra bonus equation as well. The other thing that I want you to be aware of is that ALEKS is going to define one of the variables in the problem. So for my problem is telling me let x be the number of MP3 players. X is the number of MP3 players in my situation. There is always going to be a second variable. My second variable is DVD players. ALEKS doesn't tell me anything about which letter I should use to represent the DVD player. So I'm just going to make one up on my own. I'm going to use D for DVD player. Now this is a really big deal. You pay attention to this. ALEKS, like I said, is going to tell you what variable to use for one of your objects. Like mine, it tells me to use X for MP3 player. It's not going to say anything about the other object as well, and that means that you do not include this variable in your final answer. ALEKS doesn't care about this variable. So don't include this variable in your answer. We're going to use the variable to come up with the answer, but we don't want to include it in the final answer that we put in the box right here. Okay, so like I said, we do need to come up with two equations in order to be able to solve this problem. So we're going to read through this particular problem, see what it says. It's saying that last week, this company sold a combined total of 119 MP3 and DVD players. Actually, let me add one little piece to it as well. The problem is going to give you probably three numbers. Like mine, I've got two prices. I've got $35, $18, and I've got $119. All of these numbers need to be used in one or the other equation. The numbers that are kind of similar to each other in terms of what they represent, so the 35 and the 18 both represent prices. These numbers are going to end up in the same equation because they both represent the same type of thing. Again, they both represent prices. You're going to be able to see some sort of pattern. Two of the numbers provided to you are going to represent the same type of thing, like prices. They're going to go into the same equation together. The other number is going to be unique. It's going to be different from these. This one represents quantity of objects. 119 is the total amount of things. That's going to go into its own equation. Let's use that to write an equation. We've got 119, and that 119 represents the number. It tells us a combined total of 119. 119 represents the number of MP3 players and DVD players. ALEKS told us to use X to represent the number of MP3 players right here. And I just decided I was going to use D to represent the number of DVD players. So this is one of my equations right there. I've used one of my numbers to write an equation. There it is. Now I'm going to use these other two numbers to write a second equation, the $35 and the $18. Let's take a look at what those numbers represent. The problem tells us that these are the profits. A profit of $35 for the MP3 players and a profit of $18 for the DVD players. So I know that for every MP3 player that I sell, or every MP3 player that they sell, they're making $35. $35 times the number of MP3 players is going to give me the profit coming from MP3 players. I can do the same thing for DVD. The number of DVD players times $18, that's going to be the total profit coming from the DVD players. These numbers together, I need to get rid of those dollar signs because ALEKS won't like that. These two terms together represent the total profit, which is what this problem is asking me to come up with to solve for, the total profit. So the profit per DVD player, or sorry, the profit per MP3 player plus the profit per DVD player gives me the total profit. Now remember over here I said ALEKS didn't tell me what variable to use for DVD players, and that ultimately means I don't want to include that variable for DVD players. I don't want to include it in the final answer. So even though I have come up with an equation for the total profit, 35x plus 18d equals total profit, I can't use the equation in this form in the answer because it's got that variable d that I am not allowed to use. So to get rid of this variable d, I'm going to take my equation number 1 and I'm going to algebraically manipulate this equation to solve for d. I want to isolate the d variable. I'm going to do that by subtracting x from each side of the equation. 119 minus x equals d, and this has allowed me to come up with an expression for the variable d that I can then plug into this total profit equation, which is what I'm going to do next. 35x plus 18, instead of writing d, I'm going to write 119 minus x, and that is my total profit. Now, ALEKS might be happy with the equation in this form. I honestly don't know, but I am going to not risk it and just work the math out on this. So I'm going to expand this term. 18 times 119. I got a decimal point in there. 18 times 119 is 2,142 minus 18x. That is my profit. I'm going to combine the 35x and the 18x. 17x plus 2,142 is the total profit, and that's what goes into this box, 17x minus 2,142. So that's how you would approach this version of the problem. Now the other version of the problem, like I said, I'm actually looking at one right now. It says let n be the middle number of 3 consecutive integers. Write an expression for the sum of these integers. Oh my gosh, that's just a crazy problem. So it's telling me that n is the number in the middle. There are 3 consecutive numbers, meaning that they come one right after the other, and that they specifically are even numbers, so 2, 4, 6, something like that. 3 consecutive even numbers, and it wants me to come up with an expression for their sum, the total, if I added the numbers all up. This is crazy. So how are we going to solve this problem? Well, we know that n is the number in the middle, and we know that these are 3 consecutive even numbers, which means that the next number after it is just greater by 2. Like if this was 2, then this would be, the next number would be 4. 2 plus 2 is 4. Because we know that n is the number in the middle, we know that there's a number that comes before it, and the number before it is smaller by 2 units as well. Again, because these are even numbers. What is the sum of these numbers? N minus 2 plus n plus n plus 2. That's a tongue twister. N minus 2 plus n plus n plus 2 simplifies down to 3n because those 2's cancel out. Other version of this problem I've seen, it doesn't say even numbers, it just says 3 consecutive numbers. If it was just 3 consecutive numbers, then we would be increasing or decreasing them by 1 instead of by 2. And it looks like we would get the same answer anyways. And so those are the 2 different versions of this particular problem.